Hey guys! Just let me sort out the light a little. One sec. I'm not sure why it's such bad quality. Yeah, well, it will sort itself out, I'm sure. So hi guys. So hi guys, welcome to a live stream. If this is your first time, then I'm gonna tell you how you you speak to me. If you want to speak to me, then you have to befriend me on Skype, and my Skype address is LISA Cairns 12, and that doesn't actually necessarily mean that I will answer your question. I have lots of questions, so I may or may not answer it. And at the moment, tonight I think I would like someone to phone in on Skype and speak with me. So if you want to speak live, then send a message saying it. And if you want to come to one of my events, let me just read them out. I'm doing events this coming weekend in Barcelona, and just outside Barcelona. So if you're in the area, you're welcome to join. The talks are in English. I do not speak Spanish, but we do have a translator that translates into Spanish. Okay. And on the Friday night, it's actually in Barcelona, Spain. That's the 29th, 7:30 to 10 p.m. And then over the weekend, I have talks near Barcelona. So the 30th of September and the 1st of October, they're just outside Barcelona. And then I will be doing a retreat in Cairns, Spain, which is the south of Spain. That's the 4th of November to the 13th of November. That's 10 days, but you can also do 7 days, so you can do 7 or 10 days, and you can find the info about that on my website, which is just my name, www.lisacairns.com, and I think you can just type in my name and you'll find it. I think also if you're watching a recording of this and not watching it live, I think also you can find a link to my website on the actual video. And I do talks, identity talks, online talks every Sunday and every Wednesday. But please check my website always to make sure I'm doing the talk, because when I'm traveling, I obviously can't do the talks. So check that out as well. There she is. Just have to let Khaleesi in 1 second.
Come on then. You didn't do your tin-tins. Did you do your tin-tin? What are you doing your tin-tin? You did poo-poo-poo-poo. Poo-poo-poo-poo-poo. Poo-poo-poo-poo-poo.
Okay. So let's talk about love, baby. So often when somebody's speaking about presence, you fall in love with them. Especially if they're an energetic teacher, if they have a very strong energy of that presence, then you fall in love with them. That's just the way it goes. It's just what happens. Because when somebody's talking about presence of what you truly are, it activates that love in you of what you truly are, that completion. And because you've only associated with that, or most people have only ever associated that with personal love, their mind interprets, I'm in love with her. And the mind, or him, the mind gets obsessed with the teacher being the object of love. But you can actually never love someone. There's no such thing as personal love. You can't love someone. There can be a resonance between the body, like the bodies get on and there's a similarity, but you can't actually love a thing. True love, to really love someone, is this presence. His presence is when you're in presence with someone, and it's not even separated like that, so it's not even in love with someone. It's just there's no you and there's no them, and then there's simply presence, which is love. Normally when you fall in love with someone, this is why people have only ever associated this with romantic love. For a moment, when you feel like they want you, and you feel wanted, and you feel loved, and you want them, you stop seeking momentarily. The you fails to exist in time, and there's a collapsing into presence. And then your mind says it's them. It's just that you appreciate the way they are, you're attracted to the way they are, and then you feel like that attractiveness of them loves you, and therefore you feel whole. You stop looking for something else, and then this magical, immense love takes over. And then your mind thinks it's to do with them because it happens around them, but it's not to do with them. It's that you're forgetting yourself in those moments. It's the same with anything you love, like art, playing music, listening to non-duality talks, anything that reminds you of presence, anything that you fall in love with or love. So you love this subject, or you find me attractive, whatever it is, it reminds you of who you truly are, because there's an absence of seeking. And when someone's actually speaking about presence, you can feel it. Like if I'm talking directly about non-duality, you can feel that alive presence. And then also, because I'm quite attractive as well and a young female, I think that a lot of people believe that they're in love with me. But you can never be in love with me. To believe that you're in love with me isn't love. It doesn't mean with your lover you don't say, I love you, I love you, I love you, and you don't enjoy them and that personal company. But to truly love them is to be yourself, which is presence, and to see them as that presence, to not see them as someone, but see them as that innocent presence beaming through every action they do. Doesn't mean that you'll be with anybody. There's got to be that attraction between the two bodies. But true love is seeing that there is no separation. You can't love a separate object. You cannot. You cannot love something you're in relationship with. There is no love there. So when the person comes back, this is why relationships can be so difficult, because then when the person comes back, you're suddenly you trying to be in love with the other person, and then you doubt your love for the other person. You question your love for the other person. You want that love back. You feel annoyed because you think the other person's taken that love from you. You blame them. You love them. You hate them. And none of it's true. Your love, to truly love someone, you have to be absence. Otherwise it will always be conditioned love. It will be love on, if you do this for me, if you behave a certain way, if you remain beautiful and young forever, if you remain slim, if you do this, if you treat me like that. That's not love. That's to do with pleasure and pain, and all of that comes and goes. None of it's right or wrong. I'm not judging anything. If you enjoy somebody that looks a certain way or a specific look, that's okay to be attracted to that, but that's not love. Attraction isn't love. Love is when you disappear. That's true love. So as a speaker of non-duality, that's what you're meant to be evoking in people. But I noticed that some people listening, they make the mistake and they think it's got to do with me. Or it's not got to do with me at all. You are that love you seek. So the teacher's meant to reflect that back to you. But you have to really see that it's not me. Because I'm just in a computer. How could it be me? How could it be me you're in love with? It's just in this moment you feel complete. And when you imagine me loving you back, and me giving you personal love back, you feel complete. And then your love shines through. And you think it's got to do with me. So in Tantra they have practices where you imagine this person you love. You never ever try to get them. You never try to hold on to them. You never try to keep them. You totally allow them to be 100% free. But you use their image to evoke that love in you. And you see repetitively that it's not them. Because how can the image of someone bring you love? It must already be inside of you. It must be there somewhere, and then you imagine an image, and then that love gets evoked. True love is the end of seeking. So if you feel like you're in love with me, use it. Use it to see that you always are love. And even if you just feel love for me as a speaker, you can use that to evoke love. Actually, it's not you doing it because there is no you, but there can be a functioning that produces the image of me. And then love arises from that. But no, it's not me and it's not you doing it, because there is no me here and there is no you there. But from saying that, there can be that happening. It's all about love. It's so beautiful. Everything is coming from that love you seek. And everything is that love that you seek. You are the love you seek. So if you need to imagine me loving you, imagine it, but see that it's your imagination, so it's all in you. You don't need this outside object. But know that every way in which you imagine me loving you is what you lack. So you project that outside, but actually you inherently have it because you can just imagine it and it's there. It's just your sense of self says, I don't have that. I don't have that feminine quality. I don't have that softness, or I don't have all the qualities that you project into me. And then you want it. But how? But can't you see that you can just imagine it and then you feel that? Imagine that energy loving you and then you feel it. You feel complete. It's because me, the illusory me to you, and yourself is all illusory. It's all mind-made. And you've identified with certain aspects of being human, and then you've projected those other aspects outwards. And then as a separate person, you seek for those feelings and those behaviors externally. But it's actually seeing beyond that illusion. That you had it prior to that person. That the experiencer of all this that's prior to that person is totally and utterly complete. And that completion is everywhere. Everywhere. So just feel it. Feel that alive presence. There is nothing outside of you. You imagine yourself to be someone inside that body, and that you have a body, that you have a limitation, but actually right here, right now, there is a live presence, and there is no inside or outside of that alive presence. And that alive presence isn't a colour, isn't a religion, isn't a size, isn't a behaviour, isn't an emotion, isn't a feeling. It's free of all of that, but that arises and disappears in it. So who you are is what always remains. This is it, baby. This is it, baby. This is what you seek. You never seek an object. You never seek an object. Okay, so we take some questions now. Hey, Andrea. Oh, thanks, Andrea. It comes from yourself because there's nothing outside of yourself. Andrea says, thanks for your own introduction, it was beautiful. But it's your own beauty. Isn't that amazing? Every piece of art that you see, every beautiful object, everything is coming from yourself. Not yourself as Andrea, but that which is always present, which never changes. Everything about Andrea, the character, changes. So 9 words that actually, even though in your mind, in the intellect, you think that my words come from outside of you, as the intellect relaxes and that sense of self relaxes, my words are actually coming from yourself. When there is no longer identification with anything, then everything comes from everywhere and from nowhere. Thanks, Andrea. Hey, Julia. So beautiful, Lisa. Much love, Julia and Mark. Hey, Julia. Hey, Mark. Hi, Open Eye Hung. Last time you said again that I should realize that I am safe and in peace now, and only my brain causes a problem involving my past and future. I do not understand why you think that I'm something who have to be reminded to that. I know that I am safe, at least as much as anything can be safe in this life. But in every moment of this miserable life we live, there are zillions of people who are not safe. I'm not talking about them, about reality. Stop bullshitting me, Open Eye Han. Stop with your bullshit. Just stop. Just stop. You're trying to put your unease on me. You're trying to drag others down with you. You're not really asking a question, you just want to bring others into a mental hell with you. Produce them now, all these people suffering in the world. Produce them now in your current experience and see it's in your imagination. I'm not saying that as humanity we don't try our best to live as peaceful and loving as we can. But to be peaceful and loving on the character level, you have to realize what's true and what's not. And you're stuck in this victim story, living out the traumas of all these other apparent people that are in hell that you've imagined. This is your imagination. See through it. See it's bullshit. See your mind is producing hell. That's got nothing to do with compassion, what you're telling me. What you're doing is you're trying to infect others with your mental distress. That's not to do with compassion. Compassion, the greatest compassion you can do for anyone in this planet is to be yourself, which is love. And this will have such a huge impact on the rest of humanity. It has such a huge impact. You're not leaving footprints everywhere. When I walk down the street, because I'm not suffering, I can get moody and grumpy and all these things, I'm still human. But most of the time my internal attitude is joyfulness and love. So when I'm walking down the street, when I'm interacting with people, it comes from that interaction, and people can feel that. It's so important. This is how you change the world. but you're not caring about changing the world. You do not care about other people's suffering. You want to bring everybody else into your suffering. See that, feel that, feel it, see it. Why are you trying to convince me of all these million people suffering? Why are you even thinking about it? What you should be thinking about, what you should be dealing with, is your internal state that feels like it's in hell, so it goes quickly to other people. What about all the other million people? Rather than staying with this discomfort that you feel, the suffering that you feel, you're just going to other people. That is not compassion. That has nothing to do with love or caring about society. When I was younger, I worked in the West Bank, which I've told many times. So for those people that don't know what the West Bank is, which I'm sure there's some people, the West Bank is what they now call Palestine. So you know that Palestine used to be where Israel was, and then it's now Israel and then West Bank and Gaza, and there is there's been a lot of conflict there over the last 40 years. And in about 2002, I went and worked in the West Bank with a Buddhist organization, and I'd already seen that peace couldn't be achieved by forcing peace, because I was already an animal activist, so I knew what activists were like. So I went with this Buddhist group knowing that you had to change your mind as well as change the situation. And when I went there and I worked with these other peace activists, I'd never met such hateful people as the peace activists. They were so angry. They wanted to constantly be at war. They had no internal peace. They weren't fighting for peace. They were fighting. They were fighting. They just wanted to be on the good side of peace, to fight someone and feel disjustice and feel the craziness of war. They wanted to be at war. They were not interested in peace. I can tell you a situation of a time where I struggled. I was very pretty when I was younger, and no matter how much I covered myself up and tried to make myself look ugly, the guys in the West Bank found me very attractive, and it was difficult for me to be alone in the West Bank without the Palestinian men being inappropriate, because they also had the idea that white girls would just openly have sex with anyone. So it was very uncomfortable being there, because it was very difficult for being a white, pretty, young 22-year-old in that situation. And so one time I was explaining this to the group, that I couldn't be put in this particular place for this protest because there was too many Palestinian men around me, and I would just have hands and hands and hands all over my body. And they kicked off. They went mental at me for suggesting that Palestinian men would behave that way, and that I was falling into stereotypes. And this was after a month of being there, of having many hands over my body and being put in many uncomfortable situations that the organisation which brought me over there hadn't thought about for a young white woman. And they were just really, really rude to me and hateful to me. It was like suddenly I was against their cause, and it was like a really scary situation to suddenly have the organisation you're working with against you, and saying that you're giving Palestinian men a bad or West Bank men a bad name, or blah 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 blah. And the hate that came out of them towards me was just crazy. They weren't fighting for peace and love and compassion. It was all about hate. Because really what was happening inside of them is, when they were younger, in some situation they felt an injustice, and they were just refighting that injustice again and again and again. It doesn't mean that you can't be a political activist without that. You can be, but there's a difference of being a political activist from love, Whereas fighting for peace, that's a very different thing. And to be a political activist that comes from love, there has to be that awakening. Without it, you're just fighting your old issues. You're fighting your parents. You're fighting your education system. You're fighting society. I was, when I was younger, for the animals. I was fighting against society and fighting against the education system. So don't give me all this bullshit about, what about all these people suffering, as if you care. Open eye Han, you care about yourself. As soon as you realize that all your suffering is about yourself and self-centered, and that you want to infect other people with that to validate your own suffering, then you'll begin to address the suffering that's inside of you and the pain that's inside of you, and get over your own arrogance. And what I'm saying to you, even though I'm swearing at you, comes from love. I'm trying to point out to you the illusions. And I'm very patient with you, Open Eye Han. Like, I don't know many people would tolerate. I mean, just from that first speech, what you're trying to do is you're trying to puke your stuff onto me. I don't take an ounce of it. You got to deal with it. There it is, Open Eye Han. You feel this pain inside of your body. You feel injustice. You feel like you've been abandoned by life. You feel like life has done harsh things to you. So forget about all these other million people. You're only talking about yourself. When you realize that, then you'll begin to deal with the feeling of it. Don't start with me and many others. Get over the others. You don't give a shit about the others. If you did go and donate your life and work in one of these disaster situations, when you've given me a certificate that you've worked there for 2 years, then I will take on board others. Until then, shut up about others. You don't care about others. You're using others to validate your own suffering because you're too afraid to stand there in your own suffering, so you have to bring others into it. Forget about others. Stand in it. Why do you not know what I care about? I know because I deconstructed myself, and I know from all my own bullshit. I was a peace activist. I was an animal activist. I turned vegan when I was 10 years old, a vegetarian when I was 8 years old. So I know from my own bullshit that all this other stuff, I still think that there is true compassion that chooses not to eat meat or to treat other people badly. So there is like a true compassion, but that's beside the point. I know a lot of my issues and political activism was because of my own mental distress. Like with the meat industry, it was like I used to go to the supermarkets and see all these dead animals, and it reminded me of being in society, of everyone walking around and pretending that they're not going to die, pretending that things are perfect when they're not. It's like the hidden, it was like the perfect representation of what grossed me out about society. And then I walked into the supermarket and there's everybody, it was like a horror film, there's everyone acting normally with all these dead bodies around and blood and gauze, and they're all like, ooh, a nice piece of lamb chop. And really it was because of my own suffering that grew up in a society where you weren't allowed to emotionally express yourself. You weren't allowed to cry in public or be sad or happy or angry. You had to just be this dead zombie. And so for me, it represented the same thing. And so me fighting for the animals was trying to fight against that deadness that I felt in society. I wasn't really fighting for the animals. I was when I came from a place of love, but most of it was me trying to rebel against my parents and the society I grew up in, and in me being grossed out about what I saw in my society, and then I projected that onto animals, and I was fighting to make people be aware of all the problems with the animals. So the reason that I know what you think is because I deconstructed myself, and although I would love to say that you're very special and unique, we're all kind of the same. The illusion is the same. We are special and unique. Everybody is special and unique, but also we're also very similar. We're not like, we all, the way the illusion of self works in the same way. Believe me, I do not want your compassion. I want God's compassion, if there is one. You most probably just want my attention right now, in this moment. You gotta all stop bullshitting yourself. Get real. Get real. I was such a bullshitter. I remember when my teacher used to point out stuff. We'd be walking through the forest and he'd be like, "You're angry," and I'd be walking along the forest and there would be anger in my body, but I wouldn't even be conscious of it, and I was trying to be peaceful and kind, and then I would be like, "I'm not angry," and then "You are angry," blah, 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 and he'd keep on and on and on. And it'd go on for half an hour, me saying I'm not angry, and he would be like giving examples and da 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 da. And then suddenly I'd get so annoyed by him keep saying I'm angry, I'd have an anger tantrum, and then I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm angry." Like you just got to get real with yourself. You don't want to feel what's happening in your body because you've been taught by society not to. You've been taught to only listen to the mind and only listen to what you're thinking, and then you believe you can control it. But your body feels, and it's totally uncontrollable, and it's there feeling and buzzing and alive, and there's nothing wrong with what you feel because none of it's yours. But you keep your attention up here because you're petrified of the feelings. "No, I'm not angry, I'm a very nice person, see." "No, I'm not angry, I'm a very nice person, see." And then it comes out in passive aggressive or bitchiness. Asking rude questions, saying rude things. Hi Renate. Hi Vedios. Hi. Hi Conrad. Hi Lisa. Oh yes. Hi Conrad. Hi Julio. Hi Deanna. The live stream started just a minute after I finished my gym workout. I thought I was going to do both for a while. Hi David. Hi Erica. Hey Lisa, could you talk about resistance to emotional patterns? I've been really resisting my job and I'm trying to push through it, but the more I try to just focus on my work, the more I hate it and want out. Thanks so much. In the struggle zone today. You gotta follow love, Erica. We've talked about this. Not the mind. Most people don't want to hear this because they want to carry on doing things because it relaxes them intellectually, it relaxes their mind, so they want to carry on behaving in a certain way and not changing their life. But it's like the internal and external have to match up. You have to follow love. That's really risky because most of us are invested in jobs that we hate, in situations we don't like, in just trying to pay the bills, and the idea of following love is terrifying. And what does that even mean? It's not really you follow love, it's allowing that love to come out. And that love won't come from doing a job you hate. Somebody downloaded one of my talks and uploaded it to their channel, I'm sure just to advertise their own channel. I don't mind people doing that, but there's this one guy that does it, that I know does it to a lot of spiritual teachers. He downloads and uploads their talks, and he downloaded and uploaded mine, and that's okay. I don't mind people doing that. Like, I give these away free and I'm happy for them to be shared around the internet. but he put the title on it, Be in the Moment, and something like the job you hate. And that's totally not what I'm saying, because I think when you're in the moment, when you collapse and you stop working from the intellect, then the body naturally goes back to that which it loves. It follows love over the intellect. And I think a lot of people in their work and in their life situations have followed the intellect, and then they wonder why it doesn't work, because they followed fear. They're trying to get away from fear, and then by trying to avoid fear, they wonder why they don't like their job or they don't like their situation. And I could see this so strongly when I was younger, and it scared the shit out of me as well, following love and following what I was passionate about. I was also super lucky because I'm white and I'm from a well-educated background, and my parents aren't rich, but they're middle class, so you know, my parents wouldn't appreciate me coming to them and asking them to financially support me or save me from anything, but there is always that in the back of the mind. But I really did, and I was also lucky because I was young, I didn't have lots of things, but I really did jump and give up a lot of things. I was a theatre writer, and I did really well in theatre writing. I'd just begun to make contacts. I had a house that I lived in London where I paid very little rent, and in exchange I rented out the rooms and I managed it. I had a part-time job where I worked with children with emotional behavioural disorders, and I got paid very well from that because nobody wanted to do it, and I was actually very good at it. And I quit it all to follow this subject. Everything. I gave up everything. All my contacts and the success that I'd had with playwriting, I just gave it up. And I gave up playwriting for 10 years. It's only recently, the last few years, that I got back into it. Yeah, but for 10 years I didn't do it at all. And I just followed this subject because my heart called for it. And I just followed. It wasn't necessarily the subject, I just followed more and more what felt like truth, and I didn't buy into the structure of this society. I meet so many people that don't like their jobs or don't like their living situation or their family, but they just keep staying in it. They don't make any change. And they think that when they're in the moment, then they'll start appreciating what they have, which is true, but it's like your external is living in a contracted sense of I. It's like your external life is buying into society's identity. Like it's buying into the fear, it's buying into all the propaganda of this society. And then it's sort of wanting to wake up so it doesn't feel pain in all these situations, but it can't see that the way in which they're living their life is an identified life. They're living within the confine of an identified structure. And it's like I always felt like I've lived on the outsides of society. I mean, I've sort of lived on the outside because I've used it, I trade and I buy food and I do certain things with the society. But I've always lived on the outskirts of it. I know if I'm working in a job where everyone's identified, when I go into that job, I'm going to have to pretend I'm identified too. Which is okay to an extent, but if you're doing that all the time and you're forcing yourself to go into something you really hate, where could that possibly, how can that possibly line up with this message? I'm not trying to talk anyone into quitting their jobs before people begin to sue me next week or something. I'm not trying to talk you into that. I'm just trying to point out that, if you don't enjoy being with your family because they keep emotionally offloading onto you and they expect too much from you, but you keep going back into that situation, why do you keep going back into it? That cannot be following love. That can't be love for them. Why do you keep buying into that? I'm not saying it's possible in all ways to avoid this identified society, but you've got to address your life. A lot of time when I come across people that are into non-duality, some people really go for it and really embrace it, but some people, I sometimes think that they've rejected other spiritualities because in a way it's been too hardcore, and they come into non-duality and they're like, okay, I just have to realize I'm consciousness and then I will like my job or I'll like my family. And I don't think it's as easy as that, because why would you be around people that are emotionally dumping on you, or in a job which is making you do really terrible things to other people, like you're working in a very unethical business? Like in our society, I think it's all to do with the state of mind, because in our society, you know, there's so many different possibilities of living, and if you don't open up your mind to all those possibilities, then things won't change. And it's not like you do it. So then the question is, who does it? And there isn't someone, so not prescribing to anyone. This is a description of something that happens. It's like as that instrument's updated and it learns more and more about this subject and it begins to question all its limitations, then it's like that person moves out of the way and then life gets to act more freely. But while that person's tight and contracted and believes in itself, that has to be addressed to an extent for it to move out of the way and for who you truly are to shine through. If you keep being in mental turmoil about your parents or your work, then that needs to be addressed in order for that light to shine through. But I'm not speaking to someone, because there is no one there. There is a functioning that's appearing. So I say these words and it reconditions the brain to an extent, or it drops ideas, and then who you truly are is that beingness, is that alive presence which is everywhere. And I know it sounds like a contradiction, but you have to hold that contradiction. And sometimes I'm going to be more on the present side and sometimes more on the person side, and I'm always going to contradict myself, because you cannot talk about this subject. How could you talk about this subject?
I love easy boo doo boop boop. He boop. Yicka boop boop boop. Yicka boop 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 boop. Bee.
Me and Isi are going on holiday tomorrow.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. Can you see her? Oh no.
We're going to Barcelona, aren't we?
Isi loves going to a hotel, because I trained her that a hotel contains a breakfast bar which has sausage and bacon and ham. So she knows when she's in a hotel, she's like, the memory pops up. She loves it.
Don't we, you see? And the hotel has room service as well, doesn't it? Huh? She's so good.
She's not exhausted now because she just had a big bone. Thank you for your talks about activity. I feel their hatred and anger, not all of them, and have to change channels because it hurts so much to listen to them. Yeah. Hey Keith, you're describing me very well when you say you lay into open high hun. Yeah. If you watch regularly, then you know that, me and open high hun have had lots of conversations, so it's not like I'm just laying into him out of the blue. Like he's been following for quite a long time, and he knows that I don't hold anything against him, and I don't even think those things. It's just what comes out in the moment. And I appreciate whenever I'm more firmer with someone and they come back, I really appreciate it. I know they're really serious. And sometimes I have to really block people for a period until their behavior changes. But then when their behavior changes, and when I really see their behavior's changed, then I'm happy to open up to them again. But I'm not going to keep going round and round with someone. So sometimes I block people, I bar people, I tell people no and to go away. And then when I feel like it's changed again, then I'm happy to open up to that. And I really, really appreciate it when somebody comes back after that. Because then you really know someone's serious. If they're only just coming back when I'm being nice, then they and as soon as there's a bit of not niceness, then they're really not hearing this subject. Because everything is your teacher. Everything. Everything. Whether I'm nice or not nice, everything is the teacher. The whole of life, everything that happens to you. And that's what I'm trying to show you. Everything is the teacher. There isn't a guru. Everything is. So if it's pain when you go and see the post office because there's a big queue, or if it's because I'm rude to you, or I don't give you attention, or I dismiss you, or because your lamp is broken, everything is screaming home, home, home. And when you're rejecting that, and you're identifying, and you're rejecting life, life is doing all these things to show you that rejection, show you it's not true. Every pain, everything shows you it's not true, it's not true, it's not true, it's not true. Here is home, no matter what is happening. This is home. And that really takes maturity, I think, to see. And I think that's why me and my teacher had such a profound time together, because it wasn't like he was just my teacher, it was everything, but I was totally ready to see everything that he did as a teaching, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't like a walk in the roses or a walk in the sunflowers. It was not easy. To have someone point out your issues or to behave in certain ways which you find really difficult. And it wasn't like he would do things like, he would act out passive aggressive behaviors, and I constantly saw it as teaching, or he would act out very controlling behaviors, and I constantly was ready to see it as teachings, even though I could sometimes get quite reactive. I was so ready to see that everything was my teacher. And he was so great at saying, it's not true, it's not true, it's not true. But a lot of people can't take that. They run away at the slightest thing. Oh, she's acting passively aggressively, or she said this thing one day and this thing one day and she behaves like that. I hear people slag off other teachers because they behaved like this, or they did this, or they slept with a student, or they did that or did that. And it's got nothing to do with it. Them sleeping with a student is irrelevant to you. What's relevant to you is how that makes you feel. Whether they're right or wrong at this stage is absolutely irrelevant. Yeah, we can say maybe that's not appropriate behavior, or that's in time, but that's irrelevant to you. To you, you have to see, how does that make me feel? That makes me feel afraid. That makes me feel vulnerable. That's the important part. And seeing that it's not true. Your projections onto them isn't true. You feel afraid, so therefore you project this whole big story onto them. You feel rejected, and you project all this big story, and that's it. There's rejection that comes up. There is fear that comes up, and it's not true, and then it's gone. Well, you're identified, you believe it's true, and then you spend 5 weeks hating them because they slept with your best friend, or they gave attention to someone else. somebody else who was my teacher, everything was my teacher. Everything was my teacher. There was one particular person that I spent 3 years with, and I call my teacher out of simplicity. Ultimately, I don't see there as any teacher, but I call him that because we just had the most amazing, beautiful experience together. And I'm sure that I taught him things as well. But on the non-duality path, he was more evolved with me than me at that time. And so he kept expressing the non-duality and that it's not true to me. And every time I went off in a story land, he could say it's not true, and it was really, really beautiful. And I'm sure there was things that I taught him. I think I made him a way better teacher. I think that I taught him about the emotional body. But everything is your teacher. Everything. The wind, the sunlight, the feeling of your feet on the floor. But it's almost like when the student's ready, the teacher appears, and when the student's ready, the teacher disappears. It's not so much about your teacher, it's about you just constantly opening up to seeing that everything is showing you the way home. You're not some vulnerable person that's been kicked out, and life is like the open invitation. Life is constantly saying, this is it, this is it. It's just your mind is covered with fog that feels like it's been rejected and abandoned. But when you open your eyes, you see that the coffee you taste is it. The person that's screaming at you is it. And if you feel like you're rejecting that person, then you just look inside. It doesn't mean that you just become passive. It doesn't mean that if someone's screaming at you, don't say, no, don't treat me like that. A lot of people make that mistake. Or if your partner is sleeping with someone else and they're saying to you, but it's a teaching, go deeper, but your energy is saying no, you're allowed to say no. It's just also seeing that pain that it creates is a teacher, but it's not putting yourself in abusive situations. That's a big mistake that a lot of people make. I'm not saying walk into the fire just to see that, that you're free. And just saying everything is screaming home. And really there is no teacher and there is no student. So don't even get caught on that. It's beautiful. Everything. And life gave me everything I needed. Everything I needed to see that it wasn't true. And it's there for everyone. It's just that my mind suddenly became ready to see everything like that. And so the teacher presented itself, but that teacher equally could have been a rock, equally could have been a prison sentence, equally could have been a sunflower, because my mind was ready. It's not even mine, but this mind was ready. And so therefore it looked at everything and said, teacher. And then Roger came. But then so did everything else. So did the forest that I lived in and the aeroplanes. I was in the forest in a really beautiful place, and the government redirected aeroplanes over our house. I can tell you they were a good teacher. I screamed at those aeroplanes quite a few times. They were low-flying aeroplanes, propeller aeroplanes, very noisy. Okay. I don't know how to follow love. I feel like I've been so deeply conditioned, so far away from following love. I don't seem to be able to tell what I'm passionate about. Thank you for reconditioning me. Aren't you following that love now, Keith, when you listen to this subject? Don't you feel those inklings of love? And don't worry about following love, just be open to it. And see when you're following fear, see when you're following neurosis, but be open to that call of love. It's actually your own heart, it's not something separate from you. It's as you stop suffering, then that becomes more and more obvious of when there's an identified action and a free action. Hey Sue. Hi Lisa. Love your topic, love. Yeah. You're answering questions I've asked myself today. Many blessings. See? When the mind is ready, it's there. You see everything as logic and everything as like, I've got to do this to get there. But why do you see it like that? You could equally see it like life is giving you a gift in every instant. It's like we're set up in our society to think in such identified negative ways. We're set up to suffer. But everything is a gift. Everything. So it's like, of course you're going to get the answer to all your questions today. Of course. Why wouldn't you? A question is asked, an answer comes. If your mind is closed, then it won't see the answer. If the mind is open, then it will see the answer. It will see the answer in the bird flying in the sky, in the sound of music, or in me speaking. Do you get that? It's beautiful. Hi Laurie, great talk. Whoa. Oh yeah, Laurie, I've just been so busy lately, but I really wanted to talk to you about how your talks went. I mean, now's not appropriate when I'm doing this talk, but yeah, write to me in Messenger or something and tell me about it. I really want to know. Let's see. Yeah, excited. Hi Lisa. My neighbour dog always barking is a very good teacher. Yeah. Yeah. You find negativity when the mind wants to find negativity. There's so much positive as well. Dogs are so beautiful. So beautiful. I live in such a noisy place. Like I live above a cafe. I live in a very remote place, in a very quiet town, but I live in the busiest place in the whole town. It's also beautiful. Sometimes irritation comes up at it because it gets loud, but then it's also beautiful as well, hearing the kids laughing and playing and people laughing and joking and watching people. Just to avoid any feeling. And then you see the beauty in it all. I can see a lot of people writing to me on Messenger in YouTube, but I can't really see that. Hey Beth. To go back a bit. But I think, guys, I'm gonna leave early tonight because I got to leave early for Barcelona tomorrow. Actually, the south of France, and then Barcelona. You can have a look at my beautiful Khaleesi. I is a puppy. She's so tired after her bone. Khaleesi, yucky ducky ducky. Oh, she's so lovely. She's getting a garden soon. She's getting a garden. Yeah, I'm gonna go now. And so this Sunday there are no talks, but you can come and join me in Barcelona. I think there's going to be lots of celebrations happening in Catalonia this weekend as well, so you can also come for that as well. Catalonia. No, I've forgotten how you say it. I think they're going to become independent. Catalonia. I think that's how you say it. So yeah, you can come and join in the celebrations. I can imagine we'll be going out to the celebrations on Sunday night. Yeah, that is all. Okay guys, thank you very much. I love you. Bye.